Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we're gonna make an update on my current changes of setups. We'll take a look at the Vandas. If you remember, we did change the setup for them as well. And we'll also take a look at the orchids that I transferred to plastic pots, pretty much my recent setup change. And also we're gonna take a look at some other orchids just to include them and make a journal note for them as well. And wow, my voice, it's really early morning right now. I just woke up and my voice is still sleeping. Sorry about that. Alrighty, I know you cannot see much, so let's get the Vandas down and take a look at their root systems. Alrighty, first of all, my oldest Vanda. This is the Vanda Bechara Delight, which is looking much better at the moment. Now, if you by chance don't remember the history with my Vanda orchids, I'll link you down below to a video, but basically what I did is mess up big time with them. I tried potting them in the clay medium, they hated it. I tried placing them on the terrace with dappled light, they got sunburned. And the end of the year was spent on trying to make their root system grow again. By the end of summer, I was actually soaking them overnight and still the leaves were closed in. Now, when a Vanda closes her leaves, so imagine something like this, you just know you have a hydration problem on your hands. So even though I was soaking my Vandas each night, I still had major dehydration problems because I didn't have enough roots to retain that water. They were just unpotted at the moment and they were sitting bare rooted, and within 30 minutes since I pulled them out of the bucket, the root system would be completely dry. So the orchids really didn't get a chance to hydrate themselves. It was a sad situation actually. Never had this issue with Vandas. Therefore, you might have noticed my Vandas barely bloomed last year. Particularly the Bechara Delight, which usually blooms 3 times a year. No blooms last year. So it was seriously sad for me. But then I found some good use for Synthetic, so that's what we're gonna see today. Alrighty, well, you can see the root system is growing once again, and it's doing so at a pretty rapid pace. I have roots everywhere. I also have roots starting to grow on the stem here. Not to mention the orchid is super hydrated right now. You can see the sap. I think there is a lot of sap on this side. This means it is finally getting hydrated. So practically what this is, well, it's a plastic pot that has some ventilation holes. Pretty much I'm using it as a basket because this orchid doesn't have a basket anymore. I cut the stem. There was a portion there that didn't look good. I suspected fusarium. I cut it. It doesn't have fusarium. Thank goodness. I love this Vanda. This setup works so well for me. So at the moment what I do is I don't even soak them because the Synthetic, if you submerge it and you hold it there for a few seconds, it does absorb water. It stops repelling it, and practically it keeps the water around the roots for about 2 full days, and then the 3rd day is kind of dry, and then in the 4th day I need to water once again. So this is the Bechara Delight. I am so happy with it. Let's take a look at the other ones. Alrighty, so this is a new Vanda actually. This is the Vanda Mariana that I purchased last year in October from Poland. So this one has the same setup and the roots have started to take off as well, as you can see. I love this root tip. Look at this one. And the orchid is also producing new roots on the stem. As you can see, I do see quite a few roots growing. Now, this is a pretty young orchid. It is not fully mature, so I'm not expecting blooms, but the root system looks fabulous on this one as well. So again, it works really great with this orchid. Okay, this is another new one. This is the Rhynchostylis gigantea spots, purchased it together with the Marianae. And again, we have roots growing inside the pot. I messed up this root when I potted it in the plastic pot, so that's my doing here. But the other root tips are still growing, as you can see, and we have a new leaf developing as well. Again, this is a pretty young orchid. I'm not sure if I should expect blooms at this stage. They usually bloom when they're kind of tiny, but I don't know. She's doing pretty great though. And when it comes to roots, more is more actually. Okay, this is the Vanda denisoniana. She's one that is slower to react to the change, but she started to react. I still have sunburn damage on it. I need to tidy her up. And these roots are kind of high on the orchid, so I need to raise the level in my bucket a little bit higher. So I have a little issue with the placement of these roots, but it's okay, I can make it work. So she did start to react. I have, where is it? I have a root tip starting to grow here. And I do have some tips that just started to grow on the surface as well, as you can see. But yeah, this one reacts a little bit slower. It's definitely growing a little bit better than last summer, but yeah, she just needs more time in comparison to the others. Alrighty, this is the Bechara Pink. She had the most closed-in leaves, and you still see a bit of the remnants of that. We're working on it. She gets hydrated, and the root system has started to grow. As you can see, it started to take off and it looks really great as well. I had quite a lot of damage on the roots of this orchid, but it's pulling through, obviously. Now, this root is kind of funny. Of course, roots will come out through the ventilation holes, but this one looks like it realizes it made a huge mistake and it wants to get back in. Sorry, buddy, you gotta live with the consequence. I cannot put you back right now. Alrighty, this is the Kagawara that I recently received from Ana Maria, I don't know, 2 months ago or maximum 3 months ago. It was potted initially, but due to the problems that I'm facing, I considered it a risk. Although she is a Renanthera hybrid, and Renantheras usually do good, even in my setup. I just decided to put it in this setup just to not risk it. Currently, as you can see, she's a bit red. I'm kind of getting it adjusted to the sun, slowly but surely. There is no danger of burn just yet, but it's better to do things gradually because spring sun, well, that's a killer. This orchid didn't really have time to grow roots, but I do see. Do you see those little things poking from the existing roots? Yeah, those are root tips. So her roots are branching out right now. They just started to respond to the change. I believe this one will do okay in this setup as well. It's just very soon. I just did this, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. And this is the last one. This is the Caritas Bangkok sunset. She had severe sunburn, and we did make a separate video for her. You can check it out down below. I talk more about this particular one and how it can be grown in lower light conditions. I really messed up. I put her in too much sun. She got a lot of sunburn. Also, in the place where I keep my Vandas, she managed to get pretty red, and I changed the position. She managed to bloom, but as you can see, the blooms are very not long-lived. This is not a trait of this orchid. This is just a result of all the stress. So the blooming of this orchid, sadly, for this year is pretty compromised. You can see some sun damage or redness on the flower spike as well. I checked her for fusarium because this flower spike was pretty sinister, but she doesn't seem to have fusarium, so we're good with that. It's just a result of my really improper care. Do check the description below. I do have a video on this one. I have an article about this one in the description, so yeah. Alrighty, so this is the only orchid that did not respond at all. I don't see any root tips, I don't see any developments just yet, but it might just be the fact that she bloomed. So her energy was put into this flower spike. Good thing she's kind of shedding it. I do love the blooms of this orchid, but right now I'm really interested in roots. I'd rather see roots than a bloom, to be fully honest with you. So right now, as you can see, no growing root tips. The existing roots are okay, they are absorbing water. I have sap on the leaves and on the stem, so she gets hydrated. I just don't see the new root system coming. So hopefully when these flowers are done, this one will start to move as well. But yeah, she's the only one which is not responding at all to the change. Alrighty, so those were my Vanda orchids. Overall, I'm thrilled about this setup. It's very comfortable for me. I don't need to soak them for extended periods of time simply because the Synthic does hold water and it's equivalent to a 1-day soak or something of the sorts, plus air, so it's a little bit better than a soak. Now, before we end the Vanda subject, this hydration issue is really dependent on the quantity of roots. And I'll link you down below to a video from Bumblebee. She actually does a great experiment. She weighs a Vanda before and after watering, and the result is amazing. But the Vanda she tested had a massive root system. If I were to apply her technique to my orchids, it would not work so well simply because my orchids don't have that root system. So a root system of a Vanda actually acts as a storage device as well, along with the leaves, of course. But the orchid can hold so much water, and obviously if you don't have a big enough root system, you would need to water the Vandas more or more frequent. Anyway, I do find that video really interesting, and for my Vandas who are now recuperating and just starting to grow a new root system, this setup works pretty damn well. I would go as far as to say it works wonders. So maybe this can be something that might help you out as well. If you don't have Synthic, don't worry about it. I'll link you down below to a material that was found by one of my viewers, which I believe is very similar to Synthic. I cannot tell you for sure, it looks like it, but it's up to you to discover if it works, if you have it available. It's actually blanket thread or something. Anyway, I'll link you down below to it. Alrighty, now an update on the new setup with plastic pots and pebbles, which is a more pressing matter at the moment. So this is one of the first orchids that I transferred about 3 weeks ago, the Sideria japonica. Let's take a look. It's only been 3 weeks and it needs to be observed further, but in the first instance, I wanted to observe if the new root tips get damaged, like these ones. And it appears they do not. So this root grew in between the pebbles and now it's reaching the layers of clay inside, and this root right here, which was on top, she's making her way through the pebbles. So far, it would seem that the desiccation issue or damage issue has been resolved on the top with the addition of the pebbles. Let's take a look at the Victoria Reginae now. So the aerial roots are still messed up. Yeah, must have been something with those rocks, but inside I had 2 growing roots. Let me give you a close-up that are still growing. They continued growth. No damage, as you can see, so this is pretty encouraging news. Then there is the Selagine usitana, which is growing new roots. This root already started to have damage. Do you see these little markings? I'm not entirely sure if you can see them. The viewfinder is kind of small. These were the damages. That's why I decided to transfer it. The root continued to grow, as you can see, without further damage, and it's making its way through the medium right now, or actually through the layer of pebbles, going down into the medium. And this is the Eranges biloba, and the roots have grown pretty much, so I cannot see at this point the root tip. I can see a little bit of it. I don't see any damage. They're growing down. Everything is pretty okay with this orchid as well. Okay, moved a little bit one of the pebbles. There is no damage. The root tips on this orchid are brownish orangish naturally, so they don't need to be green. It doesn't mean it's sick, that's just the natural color of this orchid. Okay, you might notice that for these orchids I didn't put ventilation holes. They are very heavy drinkers, so I thought this would keep in the moisture for longer and it would be beneficial for them. I think I will put ventilation holes. It's scary. They have been wet for 2 weeks, which is too long. Or at least I don't feel comfortable with it, but I'll just get a soldering iron. There aren't many roots on the edges of the pot, so I won't damage them, but I will put some ventilation holes because this is a pretty tight setup. I don't think it's ideal. I wanted to test it out. It's a little bit scary. It's still pretty moist after 2 weeks, and it's not how it should be. Now, in the video that I made about changing my setup, I asked you guys to give me ideas if I missed any details, and one of you guys pointed out something very valid. And this is the top not staying moist enough and the possibility of the roots to actually stop growing because there isn't enough moisture. Now, that's a very good point, and thank you for suggesting it. Now, I can solve this issue if I just spray the top with water from time to time. It's not gonna be the most comfortable thing, so right now I am testing out to see if the roots have any issues. Now, this layer of pebbles is not like a sealant. The pebbles are chunky, they have spaces of air in between them. If you look from above, sometimes you can actually see the medium, so there is some moisture being released into the air through the surface as well. It's just not a lot of it. So there is a chance that the roots will not suffer from desiccation, but there is also a chance that they will. So for now, I'm not spraying the top just to see what happens, just to see if I have any issues. But if I do have issues, I might have to spray the top with some water from time to time, or at least for those orchids who have issues. So far, no damage of the sorts, but of course, if I see anything, I will surely make an update, I will mention it, and thank you so much for pointing it out. That's some great thinking. Alrighty, now about the layer of pebbles, because I got a few questions about how I test it, if it's good for orchids. Now, what I'm looking for are pebbles who don't really leach out much calcium or magnesium, because that can mean an oversaturation of the pot with these nutrients. I'm dosing them already. I consider that a little bit of leach is not detrimental. Orchids do actually need calcium, but it just has to be in low quantities. So recently I purchased some more pebbles from a different place just to test them out. I'm gonna tell you how I test them out. So usually I use my TDS meter here. I took some pictures. These are some pebbles that I'm testing. I started out with pure osmosis water of 12 parts per million. I left them in the water until evening, and this is the result I read. And also this morning, this is the result I read again. And as you can see, these rocks actually leach out quite a bit. The pebbles that I'm using currently are purchased from a pet shop. Usually in pet shops, you will not find those decorations that can leach out in the water. So the pebbles that I'm actually using don't leach out much. I left them for 3 days in water, and I had an increase in parts per million of 0.3, which is pretty much nothing. And it might be due to some dust or something. Or the fact that water evaporated, and of course the concentration of salts increased as well. So the pebbles that I use are not leaching out. Also, I'm testing the pH with my pH meter. I didn't test these ones because I'm more concerned about the parts per million. These are not good. I'm not gonna use them. Unless I have an orchid which does need a lot more calcium, these might be good, but for all purpose, all of my orchids, I prefer pretty non-leachy pebbles. And this is how you know. But there is another test. If you don't have these devices, I can show you how you can test the calcium quantity. I cannot do anything about pH, but there's an easy way, oopsie, to test your rocks for calcium. So all you need to do is get yourself some vinegar. Vinegar is an acid and it dissolves salts. Then put some pebbles on a surface and then just drop a few drops of vinegar on top of them and listen carefully for fizzing sounds. So I'm gonna do that now, and then I'm gonna put you closer. I think you hear that. I can hear it from here. So if you hear this noise, usually it means the rocks in question have some calcium content, and the fizzing sound is produced by the calcium being dissolved by the vinegar. And ooh, I have a little friend here. It's a red spider. It's not a spider mite, it's just a red spider. I think you might have noticed it before me because you were zoomed in. Anyway, now let's test the other pebbles. So I have here a bunch of my other pebbles. Let's put some vinegar on them and take a listen. Now you should have been able to hear something because you were very close. This microphone is very good. I didn't hear anything. I put them close to my ear and I didn't hear much. So these are rocks which do not have a high calcium content. If they would have fizzed. Now this will not give you a precise measurement. Obviously, it will just tell you if the type of decoration of rock has the potential to leach out salts or not. Alrighty guys, I think I will end it here. I might have mentioned at the beginning of the video that I'm going to show you some other orchids as well, but I think the video is too long already. So let's end it here. This is an update on the setup changes overall that I performed lately. I'm going ahead with the new setup with a few orchids and observing them. And of course, I will keep you up to date. I also decided to search for the white decorative containers. For now, I'm just testing these out. I think everybody does colorful pots because nobody actually buys white pots. Anyway, so alrighty guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope this was interesting or helpful. I'll keep you up to date, of course, with everything. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe to my channel for daily orchids and plants videos, or almost daily. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Bye! Alrighty, my greenhouse looks kind of funny right now. You see all these green orchids, some have flowers, and then you look on this shelf and you see yellowing leaves all around and it looks like everybody's dying. Well, they're not, it's catasetums that are shedding their leaves, but it looks pretty drastic right now on this shelf.